because I'd like you to actually engage in the conversation and talk, but I think that there's probably too much background noise. So how about this? If you don't have a lot of background noise and can unmute yourself and want to say something, I'd love to hear your comments. And I would also like to hear or see you post in the chat about the paintings, because I think you're going to find your answers just by looking at what we have. So that's what we're going to take a look at. And I also wanted to say how much I appreciate you not submitting every single attempt, because as you know, as we're going through this, there's quite a few that you have to do to get to a point where you might be happy with. And this way, it just makes it easier for all of us. And they're all gorgeous, what I see. All right, you can communicate with each other, and then I can review it later. So let's take a look at how these all pull together, because there is no right or wrong. They're all striking and so different. They're just gorgeous. I will make comments on them in a minute. And I know I'm probably going a little fast. How about this? I'm going to go back to the top. And this will be number 1. So if you decide you want to make a comment on number 1, write number 1 and then the comment. This is number 2. Number 3. And then I'm going to go through all these. This is number 4. Number 5, I know that you're going to do speed typing. I'm sorry about that. But you can also unmute yourself. I think that was number 5. Number 6. Number 7. And we have 15. Okay, I have never done it like this, where, as you know, if you've been in other courses where I have reviewed, I've never called out a number and wanted you to comment on that. But this way, I think it's really interesting, because you're going to see what you really like in somebody else's painting, and it just gets a lot of feedback for the group. I'm going to make my own comments, but I'm going to let you go ahead and chat in the box if you want. But they're all fantastic. So what I thought was really interesting about this, like right up here, these little clumps of color is usually what we don't want to get when we're doing other kinds of painting, but I really like it in here. It adds some just intensity of color, and it works with the entire painting. You've got some over here, great. You've got excellent color in here. And you could go ahead and just, if you wanted, I think it's great as is. You really don't have to do anything to it. But if you just want to add maybe a brush stroke, like what you did over here in this area, you could, but you don't have to. I think they all work on their own. They can be left alone, or you can enhance it. Okay, and if you see me looking at your painting and you want to jump in, please do. Now this too, like you could always add more detail if you wanted, but then what's really fun about this is that you've got such a great play of color. You've got the yellow and the pinks and a few hard edges and the blues, so it works beautifully. And you could add like a little, maybe just a stroke right in here to give it definition, but then again, it changes everything. Right now, we're like myself, I'm just intrigued with the color and the shape, and I don't really need to know all the details. And that's what's so different about this particular painting. But let's say we want to change it. I don't know if I can do this, but let's give it a try. We just added a stroke. And why I wanted to show you this is, let's say we break this shape up, it changes everything. So you may want to, you may not want, you may or may not want to. Let's even add another one over here. Now our eye kind of goes out through everything. And as is, our eye is really drawn to the large shapes. So they all work. It's just an individual interpretation. And then this, what I really like about this too, it's very light, and it's so different than what we usually do with that when we really work more with the values and trying to get depth in here. Here you've got an excellent combination of hard and soft edges and blooms. And what makes this really fun is that white of the paper showing through. So that was very, very well done. And in here too, even though we don't have a lot of definition over here, you could always pull it out more if you wanted, but it works very nice like this too. It's very suggestive, loose, and even though we don't see, it's not, I wouldn't call it it's not like the other kinds of paintings where we're really trying to get a very strong image or however a composition, whatever you want to do. Here it's more evoking a feeling, and you've got this wonderful starting point, and then you can move out throughout the rest of the painting. You've got a nice little touch of blue out there, and I like how that dissolves over there. Even consider this as a foundation, and if you wanted, do you see how they handled just a few hard edges through here or bigger petals and allowing the color to accumulate along those edges? That could work very nicely in this. Here we did more, or you did more of the negative painting. And then if you added something like that on top, it's just a nice touch. And how you can use something that somebody else did and then interpret it into your own painting. What I also really like is how they have the bluish color up here and then put it down here. That turned out very, very nice, and nice hits of strong color through there. Beautifully done. And just a suggestion of detail there. And then even this is really nice on white paper. What I think is really fun about this are these brush strokes right up here, because it adds to the looseness of the painting. We've got, let's say, like, I like this as is, but let's say you even used this technique right up here and dissolved more color along the edges, similar to something like that. You don't have to put the blues in there. Let's say we're keeping it white, but see what I'm talking about is this little bit of dissolved color in there. That could be fun for something like this. And I like the harmonious colors that you have back here, but I also was curious what it would look like if we pulled the flowers more forward and pushed the background back a little bit more. And then my suggestion, even though I'm limited to the colors I have, and you can see this is obviously not watercolor. If you wanted to pull them forward, then you would just, you wouldn't make it as defined as this, but you don't have to go dark everywhere else. Just having a hit of a darker value back there can push that back and pull those forward. Okay. Now, you know, this one may not be as, it doesn't have as many loose edges, but it really has a fun appearance to it. And now I'm curious, the goal of the artist, if...
Yeah, hi, very good. I used soft pressed paper, and I was really having a lot of trouble getting soft edges on it. And you had mentioned that, you know, maybe I need to just spray the surface after I put the color on if it seems like things are drying too quickly. So I might try that, but I got a lot of hard edges. Only I think it was the paper.
I think it's the paper. Yeah. I think the paper, because the softer size surface is going to absorb very quickly. So how you would handle this is, as you were doing it, that you would soften an edge here and there, because you can always come back in and make a harder edge to it. To give you a demonstration on that, or do you get the idea?
Yeah, I get the idea.
Okay.
Yeah, I guess I have to soften as I go along a lot more.
Yes. So what you're doing then is you're probably painting your flowers and just having a great time, which is wonderful. But
right. Going back is tough, because it doesn't seem to soften up as much as I'd like.
No.
So
if I was going to go ahead and put something in as I laid that down, I might come back in with a wet brush, a damp brush or something, and soften an edge. You see how that ends up soft like that as I go? And then if the areas...
they'll work much more quickly.
Yes. And if I can't work as fast, then I'm going to go ahead and use a little small mist bottle, but I'm working in this area, then working my way along. But this still really has a lot of charm to it.
It was it was a challenge. It's fun to try.
You're not alone. Just stay with it, soften the edge, and then spray it now and then. We're not really trying to focus on any one area. It's creating more of a mood, working with the strokes, and just basically trying to have fun with it.
This one is mine, Birgit, and
Okay.
I hated this painting. And I mean,
Don't be shy.
my
Don't be shy.
family says it looks like a 10-year-old did it, and I agree. It was the loosest. Well, I don't know if it was the loosest. This was like the third one I did, and I thought about doing it again. And I just couldn't bring myself to do another one.
Okay, so how about this? I want you to use this as a foundation, and you know, I don't want you to feel like, oh gosh, I don't want to work on this anymore.
Yeah, that's pretty much how I feel.
Yeah. Well, I'd like you to use this as your experimental piece.
Oh,
Not
okay.
trying to make it better, but what I think would be fun with this is that there's a couple things, a couple ways. If I was looking at this, I would think, wow, I could get the whole thing wet, or you could just get it underwater and lightly scrub it with a brush, but I am not one to lightly scrub anything that way. I would just go ahead, get water on it, get more of a ghost image on there. So you've got
Okay.
that as a foundation. I think that'd be so much fun. And then any one of these that we've looked at will give you a good idea. Let's see if I can get back to it. Do you see how that lighter color could be a ghost underneath that? And then use some of that darker, for instance, this, let me get out of the way so you can see that right there, something like that. And
I love how that flows. I love the combination of the different colors blending together.
but see
And
now,
that's because it's wet on wet, right?
well, let's see. There is a lot of wet on wet, but she also came back in with the dry edges here. So that's why I'm saying, and then look at this. This is not, I mean, there's wet and wet in the background. And then here, they may want more, maybe want more detail, but what you've really got is this wonderful element of the color, which is striking. I think that it probably could be developed a little bit more, but I wonder if maybe I'd have to think about it more, maybe develop something back here, because I really like the intrigue of the giant shape in here. So yours is just like in the baby stage.
Yeah. I stopped because I went, if I do anything else, I feel like I'm going to ruin it. And so I had to turn in something. So I just turned it in.
I know your teacher is quite a bear, I know. So
not at all. You're so kind. You always have something wonderful to say about everything.
oh, thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.